When I awoke in the morning, I lay on my bed for several minutes thinking about the day ahead. Although yesterday had been the 4th of July, today was a legal holiday in observance of the 4th. I didn't know if Mom had planned any activities, but I knew that there were lots of parties and barbecues going on. I guessed that I would find out what she had planned for the day during breakfast. I got out of bed, went into the bathroom, splashed some cool water on my face, and patted it dry. Then I brushed my hair and put it into a ponytail as I had seen Carol do so often. Back in my bedroom, I put on a robe, and after examining myself in the mirror, went downstairs. I was the first one down as usual, so I got the bacon and eggs from the fridge and started to cook enough bacon for the 4 of us. I had put an apron on to help protect me from the splatters of the frying bacon, and while the bacon was cooking, I made a pot of tea and set the table. Then I returned to remove the bacon from the pan and lay it out on a paper towel that would soak up the excess grease. Just as I finished with the bacon, Aunt Jessica came in, so I asked what her preference was, and started to cook the eggs. I turned the eggs over easily for several seconds before dishing them up and retrieving the toast from the 4-piece toaster. Putting several pieces of bacon on each dish, I carried them to the table and sat down to eat with Aunt Jessica. As we ate, Aunt Jessica said to me, "Crystal, this is very good. How long have you been cooking?" "For a couple of years. Mom taught me how to cook bacon and eggs, and a few other things. I'm usually the first one down, so I make the bacon rather than waiting for Mom to come down. I make my own eggs if she hasn't come down by the time that the bacon is cooked." "That's wonderful. It's important that every young girl knows how to cook so that they can be self-sufficient." "What else do you cook?" "Just basic things. Pasta, chicken, steak, rice, potatoes, and salad. Nothing fancy." Once you know the basics, you can expand on them easily. It sounds like you would have no trouble cooking a complete meal. That's a big step ahead of many girls your age. Just then, Mom came into the kitchen. "Morning, Jess." "Morning, Crystal." I said, "Good morning, Mom." Aunt Jessica said, "Good morning, Susan. Didn't you sleep well?" "Well enough, I just can't seem to wake up." "Well, have a seat. Crystal will make your breakfast, won't you, dear?" "Sure, Aunt Jess." I got up and went to the stove. While I was cooking, Carol came in, so I made her breakfast also. As I dished the eggs up, the toaster popped up its 4 slices. I delivered the eggs, bacon and toast to the table and sat down. Mom said, "Thank you, dear." Carol said, "Thanks, sis." "You're both welcome." Aunt Jessica said, "Do you have any plans for today, Susan?" I thought that we might go to one of the barbecues that some of the churches and social organizations are hosting around the city. That sounds like a fine idea. What do you kids think? Carol said, "Sounds like a plan to me." I said, "Okay, with me too." Mom said, "I like your hair like that, Crystal. It will probably be a lot cooler than wearing it down." "Did you intend to wear it like that to the barbecue?" "I don't know. I didn't really give it much thought. I guess that it depends on what I wear. I guess that it would be cooler though." Carol said, "I have the perfect dress. It's a floral print that will look great on you." After she and Carol had finished eating, Mom said, "I'll clean up. Why don't you girls take your baths?" "Jess, you can use my bathroom first, then I'll go after you." Carol and I went upstairs to my bedroom. She helped me to remove the corset while my bath ran. It felt so wonderful to once again have the restrictive garment off of my body. I scratched and rubbed the poor wrinkled flesh on my torso. I examined my breasts to see if the glue had started to let go, but I could find no gaps. I sat down in the warm water when the tub was filled. I relaxed and let the warmth seep into my body. Then I used Carol's razor to clear my body of any hair that I could find. With that done, I washed, and then relaxed until the water started to cool. I stepped out of the tub and patted myself dry. Then I used Carol's powder before knocking on her door to tell her that the bathroom was free. I walked back into my bedroom and closed the door so that Carol would have privacy. I put on my panties while tucking myself back and then put on the panty girdle that gave me so much of my female shape. I got out one of the new bras that Mom had bought me and felt relief when the weight of my breasts was shifted to my shoulders. I sat on the bed and rolled my nylons up my legs. After putting on a short chemise, I wrapped the corset around me and fastened the two front pieces. I adjusted the placement of the corset on my body, then tugged on the laces to close it as much as I could. When I couldn't close it anymore, I wrapped the laces around my body and tied them in a bow. I affixed my nylons to the hanging garter tabs and then sat down at my former desk and now makeup table to put on my makeup. I was about halfway through when I heard Carol getting out of the tub and draining the water. I was almost finished with my face when she opened the bathroom door and came into my room. She was wearing a full-length bath towel wrapped around her. She said, "I came in to see if you needed any help before I went to get dressed. I could use some help with my corset. I can't get it tight enough by myself." "Okay, stand up and I'll tighten it for you." I arose from the chair and placed myself in front of her. I undid the laces from where I had tied them and she took them in her hands. She started pulling and tugging until I could barely breathe. As she pulled, her bath towel slipped off and she just kicked it out of the way. When she couldn't make any more progress with the laces, she wrapped them around my waist and then tied them off behind me. "There," she said, "that should be enough for now. Let me know if you want me to adjust it again before you finish getting dressed." Cries. She looked at me and said, "Your mascara is a little uneven. Let me fix it for you." She walked naked to my makeup table and got the bottle, then returned and worked on my eyes for a couple of minutes. This was the first time that I had seen my sister totally naked since we had been very small children, and Mom had bathed us together in the tub. She had a very well-proportioned body, although her breasts were smaller than mine were. Her skin was flawless and very smooth. I envied her natural curves because she didn't have to wear a heavily padded panty girdle to have feminine hips, nor a corset to reduce her waist size. She could just wear her regular clothes and look beautiful. When she was satisfied with my mascara, she left to get dressed, telling me that she would return with the dress that she was lending me, and we could work on our hair and nails together. I walked around the room trying to get used to the corset's tightness. After about 5 minutes, I sat down at my makeup table and looked at myself in the mirror. Not too bad, I thought. I wasn't the makeup artist that Marge was, but I was getting better and had done a good job. With a few more days of practice, I would be pretty good, not to mention pretty. Carol had been right when she had told Mom and Aunt Jessica that I had been the hit of the party last night. The boys had practically tripped over their tongues when they looked at me. Any 15-year-old girl would love to look like I did. Carol came in carrying my dress. She told me to stand up again so that she could take in the slack from the corset now that I had been wearing it for a while. I had just gotten used to it as it was, but I stood so that she could untie the laces. She pulled and tugged with all of her strength, finally putting her knee into my back for the final pull. Then she wrapped the long laces around my body twice and tied them off behind me. I could barely breathe, but knew that I would get used to it shortly, and that the laces would stretch a little as the day went on. Carol helped me to put on a full slip, and then the dress. She put the single strap heels on my feet because I could not bend over at all. When I stood up, I felt myself become 4 inches taller once again. After having worn Carol's shoes all day yesterday, the thin heels gave me no trouble at all today. Carol said that we would be more comfortable doing our nails in her room, so I followed her there. We sat down at her makeup table and she did mine first, painting them with a lovely light burgundy color. After they had dried, I did hers with a dusty rose, a shade that she liked. When we were done, it was still early, so we gave each other a pedicure as well. This was my first, and it hurt as she pushed the skin back on the cuticle line. She then put each of her feet into my lap, one at a time, so that I could do hers. I worked over a towel so as not to damage her dress. She squirmed, as I had, when I worked on her cuticles. When the nails were prepared, I applied 2 coats of the dusty rose color. We sat and talked as we waited for the polish to dry. She wanted to know what I had thought about the boys that I had danced with last night. I told her which ones I had enjoyed dancing with and which ones were not very good. To my surprise, she agreed with all of my opinions about the different boys. We began talking about other boys at school and I was again surprised at how similar our opinions were. Perhaps my sister and I were not as different as I had always thought. After the polish had dried thoroughly, Carol rolled my nylons back up my legs and attached them to the garters. Then she put the shoes on my feet again. After she had finished dressing herself, we did our hair. She combed and brushed mine, and then showed me the finer points of making a ponytail. I combed and brushed hers and tried what she had shown me, but my efforts were not as successful. She had watched me in the mirror and explained what I had done wrong. My second attempt turned out much better, but she wasn't satisfied, so she had me try again. She judged my third attempt to be perfect. Finally, she selected some earrings and bracelets that she said would look fantastic with the dress that I was wearing, and I put them on. The earrings had large gold dangling pieces that tugged at my earlobes. After she had selected and put on her own, we went downstairs. Aunt Jessica and Mom weren't down yet, so we sat in the living room and glanced through some teen magazines. We talked about the clothes, jewelry, and hairdos in the magazines. We were so engrossed in our discussions that we didn't even realize that Mom and Aunt Jessica had come down until Mom said, "Ready, girls?" We both got up and hurried to get our purses and check our appearances in the mirror before hurrying out to the car. Mom drove us across the city to a small fair that was being hosted by a volunteer fire department just outside the city limits. As we rode, I noticed that many of the stores were open for business, especially the larger ones. Since yesterday had been the actual holiday, everybody was not observing today's pseudo-holiday status. I wondered if the manufacturer who had made my breasts was open. But then reflecting upon it, I realized that probably all of the regular businesses were closed. It was only the retailers who didn't get the day off. It was like that on most holidays these days. The stores, especially the malls, were always open. Please subscribe for the next part, and visit my Patreon page for early access. Patreon.com/Eden07. Link in the comment. Thanks.